Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. Yesterday, I read a story in Time magazine on their website. The story was about a study done at the University of New Hampshire. According to that study, white deaths are outpacing white births in 17 states in America. These 17 states make up 38% of the population in the United States. These states include places like Florida, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. According to this study, the declines are driven by an aging white population. It's driven by fewer women of childbearing age, and it's driven by lower fertility rates among whites. Also, this situation contributes to the acceleration of diversity in America. Minorities continue to grow due to higher fertility rates. And according to this article, in the mid 2040s, people of color will be the majority in the United States. So there's been talk about this online, and I haven't watched the videos that I've seen on this subject, but I've seen the titles. I've noticed that people are talking about it. And I'm sure that some people may see this as a sign of the end for white people, a sign of the end for white supremacy in this country. And that's going to bring me to a question that I'm going to raise at the end of this video. But I think that this type of situation where you have a decline in the white population, all this situation is going to do is intensify hate crimes in this country. It's going to intensify the efforts of these white supremacist groups. You're going to see the emergence of the far right in the area of politics. You're going to see them doing everything in their power to cling on to power, using tactics like voter suppression, using other methods to decrease the minority population, to make it more difficult for minorities to overtake the majority in terms of numbers. And you're going to still can see a consolidation of wealth and power among white people. And despite the large numbers of minorities that will be in this country, despite the declining numbers of white people, these white people are going to cling on to power with everything that they have. And despite their diminishing numbers, that's still going to be the situation. We are reminded of apartheid South Africa. Even though whites were a minority in South Africa and even the African continent as a whole, they maintained power and control over South Africa, and they maintained power and control over the whole world population. Despite the fact that white people are a minority in the world, they have maintained power around the world. And Malcolm X, in a powerful speech that he gave in a documentary, and I'll include a link to that documentary in the description box, and I'll include a link to this article that I'm relying on for this video. But Malcolm X raised a question. He said, how can so few white people rule so many black people? He raised that question. So the numbers game, while important, it is not determinative of the outcome. These people have always been the minority in the world, but they have managed to rule the majority through various tactics, including divide and conquer. They have divided the oppressed people up, and they have the oppressed people fighting each other. And because of that divide and conquer strategy, they maintain control. And that divide and conquer strategy works on the most basic of levels. First of all, they can divide black people among black people, have us divided amongst ourselves, have us at each other's throats, have the men separated from the women, going at each other. And we see this here on YouTube. The so-called gender war, black men versus black women. You have light versus dark. You have affluent versus poor. You have all these divisions. You have this religion versus that religion. This conscious community versus that conscious community. Republicans versus Democrats. Integrationists versus nationalists. So you have all these divisions in the community. The old versus the young. Much like was talked about in the Willie Lynch letter, and I know that that letter is bogus, but I think the point is valid about division and conquering a group of people. And we've seen this on the African continent, how they have managed to divide nations and have tribes fighting each other. They will bestow certain privileges on certain tribes over other tribes, thereby exacerbating conflict. They will arm both sides of a struggle to destroy both sides, to cancel out both sides. And, if you just look at the slave trade, during the slave trade, you had African people at war with each other, selling prisoners of war to the damn white man. The white man was giving them guns and weapons that they used to destroy each other. And this is documented in the masterpiece, The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. If you haven't read that book, I encourage you to read that. But then when you go just beyond the African American community, you can look at the divisions between just the oppressed people in the United States or the marginalized people in the United States. You have the Hispanics versus the African American. You have poor whites and working whites who should have a lot in common with working people in this country, with working black people, working Hispanic people, and others. But they are divided from other workers because of white privilege. Because of this myth and lie of white supremacy, they feel that they are better, even though they are literally in the same boat as other working people. They tend to identify with someone that's not even of them, simply because of the color of their skin. So you have a poor white trash person identifying with a wealthy billionaire like a Donald Trump. So as long as the oppressed, the workers, the African Americans, and the Latino peoples, as long as they are divided, this tiny minority will continue to rule over the majority. And that can be expanded on a worldwide level as well. So this declining number of white people is no cause for celebration. It's no cause for us to think that we're going to overcome white supremacy just based on these declining numbers. It's more complicated than that. But this whole thing brings me to a question that I was thinking about quite some time before I actually saw this article. And that's the question of this. If white people disappeared from the face of the earth, would that change life for black people? And how would it change life for black people? Would that mean an end to police brutality? Would that mean an end to racism? Would that mean an end to poverty? An end to the crime that plagues our communities? An end to the social problems that are in our communities, like the inner city violence, the drug abuse and drug selling, and the problem of mass incarceration in our communities? Does that mean that we would be a more prosperous community if white people disappeared? If white people disappeared, would life be better for us? So that's my question. Tell me what you think about this whole issue. I look forward to hearing your comments. seeing your comments. So please rate, comment, and subscribe. Peace.